Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee, Tech, and Opportunity. We're excited to be joining you today and bringing to you just great content, great guests who will talk about technology, their careers, and field live stream questions from our viewing audience. Um, there is never been a better time to be in technology, even though the landscape is changing super aggressively. But what we're really here to talk about is the conversation with Terrance Bey, who today is the CEO and co-founder of an amazing tech startup. I want to quickly run through his bio before we bring him on live. Terrance is a progressive thinker with over 20 years of multinational experience in innovation and strategy development. His passion for technology led him to companies like Google, Atos, Siemens, Tata Consulting Services, and IBM. Terrance has held such positions as a cloud engineer, cloud customer experience leader for the US and Canada, chief innovation officer, chief technology officer for digital transformation and cloud solutions, and industry CTO in the manufacturing, retail, and transportation sectors. Without further ado, I want to bring to you Terrance Bey, who is going to give us a quick intro. Terrance, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, man? Glad to be here.
Man, we're super excited to have you. Thank you for joining us today. We've been looking forward to this conversation for some time. Happy to share your bio, but man, I just want to jump in so that we can share your story, steal your knowledge, and talk about the exciting things that you're doing today. So to start off with, I mean, you've been in technology for decades. Kind of you've grown up in it, but you could have done anything. Why did you choose technology?
Man, I don't know if I chose technology or technology chose me, right? I went to Tuskegee University and I actually majored in electrical engineering. And so I thought I was going to be an engineer working on amplifiers and audio, sound, and all of this stuff. And then I took my first opportunity to intern. And when I did the intern, I got stuck on quality engineering. And man, it was miserable. I was miserable. It was boring as can be. And so I started saying, well, what do I really want to do? And this was about the time that people were really doing programming and we were starting to do programming, Fortran, C, C++. And I sort of caught the bug. And once I caught the bug, I would spend nights doing a lot of the software development because I like to create software that solve problems. And now, as I look at a 20-year career, I look at technology very differently. And when I look at it now, when someone asks, why tech, I always say three reasons. One, it scales quickly, it's repetitive, and it eliminates human error, man. So when you're trying to solve problems, when you can do that, then you're already ahead of the game.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. You have been experienced a number of firsts in your career as a Black tech professional, as a Black tech leader of people, as a budget leader, strategy leader. Um, you know, what is it like being the first person to do something, or the only Black person to do something? And it's a two-part question. And can you share any cultural conflicts that you've experienced as a leader, and how you navigated those waters?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I always say I've been in quite a few rooms, and most of the time, I'm the only person of color. But I actually think that that has been a positive for me because I think the combination of race as well as being growing up in Chicago and one of the tougher parts of the city, you just have a very different perspective on how you look at things and what's going on in the room. So I guess I would use that to my advantage. Um, I always knew sort of where I came from and what it was like to survive there. So when you think about being the first, I always looked at it as an opportunity to take a big swing. Right? What's the worst that could happen? Right? What? Nothing. I could just it just wouldn't work. But most of the time, it seemed to have panned out. So I'd always say, man, like just take the big swing because the worst thing that could happen is you remain in the place that you were in. But if you were to hit, then the sky's the limit. When you ask about sort of cultural conflicts, oh man, I've seen so many, right? I remember I was telling one of my mentees the other day about a gentleman who I spoke with one time, and he told me he needed a new job because he was making a measly $400,000, and I just didn't understand that, right? I'm thinking, where I'm from, man, that is a nice place to be, very different space, and I think that when you think about some of those opportunities that people take for granted, it's really interesting. But I've also had an opportunity to work on behalf of quite a few people in roles around DEI, and really standing in the gap and helping craft some of those what we now see as more and more cultural norms. To go, hey, this, we have to look at this differently. We have to think about it differently. We have to be intentional about what we do, because equality doesn't happen by accident. So, like I said, have a lot of fun doing this type of stuff, a lot of exposure to it, and glad I could have been in the room.
You've held titles of global chief technology officer for digital transformation and industry CTO and big spaces. Um, do you and now you're a co-founder of an amazing tech company, which we'll get to, but do you have a mentor today at this stage in the game? Um,
So I would say yes, but not kind of like people think, right? I think that when we think about mentors, traditionally, it's almost like the person I want to follow, pattern myself after, and sort of guide. I look at life a little bit different. So I have multiple mentors. So I have a mentor who has a lot of experience in being a great father, right? I have mentors who are strong people of faith. I have mentors that are strong in philanthropic activity. So I think I'm at the point in my life where a lot of the folks who were mentors early sort of gave me the foundation that I needed to continue to move forward. And then the folks that I tend to attach myself to now are for really specific reasons. And rarely is it about money or title. Because I'll tell you, I always say money doesn't make you the bigger person in the room. It just makes you the better paid. And higher titles just mean that you have a lot more responsibility for more people, man. That's it. That's what that means.
got it. Got it. Now let me ask you this. So when you think back, and I hear that when I talk to other CIOs and CTOs, I hear that conversation, the multiple mentor piece and it's almost a degree of specialization. So areas, not everyone can mentor you on everything. So for those of you who are watching, take notes on that message. So tell me about what role mentoring played for you in the earlier parts of your career, and and how did you come about these mentors? What's the process? Because it's a struggle point for some people who, even in the middle of their career, people who are 10, 15 years of their career, they probably struggle the most with identifying and building relationships with mentors.
Well, I think for now and just discovering mentors, I think you have to be willing to put yourself out there, right? To put yourself out there and engage with people, and g- you want them to know you, and you want to learn them. And I say that because I think I kind of had that issue when we were as CEO, coming out as a CEO, leaving corporate America in this startup. I started to reach out to folks who were CEOs that were actually leaving their companies, meaning they were either about to exit or they were retiring and just going to be on the board, to just sort of understand, how they were able to last through the journey, some of the pitfalls, some of the mistakes. So I think putting yourself out there and reaching out to people is one of the biggest things. But I think a couple key things that I've learned, from mentoring in my career is, you know, th- the first one is someone told me one time, be one page ahead of the manual than your customer, right? No one knows it all. And you don't want to pretend to, and you don't want to put the pressure on yourself. So you want to make sure that you're just bringing value all the time. One other mentor told me something one time. There was a job posted, and I knew that job I should have it. Right, I'm like, man, that's my role. I've been doing that work. And I'm asking myself, why didn't they bring it to me? So I went to my mentor and I asked him, I said, hey, this job came out. I see it's our VP that sort of put it in play. And he said, yeah, we thought that job would be great for you. And I said, well, why did anyone come to me? He said, hey, I had to be careful. He said, because sometimes we want more for people than they want for themselves. And so by putting it out there, allowing you to see it and giving you the opportunity to speak up on your behalf tells us that you want it as much as we think you should have it. Right. So I think those are some of the things where mentors have, sort of really been important to me. I'll tell you one last one, and this is funny about when you find a new mentor. I had a gentleman I worked for not a long time, but I took one more promotion before I left a previous company, and he told me something. He said there'll always be naysayers. He says you have the title, you have nothing to prove. All you have to do is be. And I think a lot of times as people of color, we try to prove that we deserve what we have. And he was telling me, you have nothing to prove. You've earned it. Just be what we've told everyone you are. And I think that was some other advice from a mentor that I think still resonates well.
That's awesome. That's great advice. So, couple questions, and we've got a few more questions. Then we're going to turn over the questions to the live stream audience. So soon, I'm going to ask folks to share your questions for Terrance in the chat. He's a wealth of knowledge. Absolutely, take advantage of this opportunity. One of the things I want to talk about that's been super pervasive in the Black tech community, especially those who have north of 10 years of professional technology experience, who have yet to ascend to the point where they're a people leader, a budget leader. They have hiring and firing authority, and really are a decision maker in the rooms in which decisions are being discussed. And so, with that, we're seeing a lot of career stagnation, specifically for the black mid-career black tech professionals. Um, and as we meet these folks, they're moving sideways, not upward. What advice would you give them? So for someone, let's say, who's been in technology for 10, 12 years, they've been in their current role or operating at the current level for 5 years, or 5 years plus, what advice would you give to someone like that?
There's a few things, right? The first thing I'll say, because I've seen it happen, and I'd probably say early in my career, I was doing the same. Stop waiting on someone to acknowledge or see you, right? Like you don't need that acknowledgement, right? I always say, take on the tough challenges. I go into a room with executives, and it doesn't matter which level of executive they throw out a question. Most of the time, they're asking a question. It's because they don't know the answer. So don't be right. No one asks questions that they really know the answer to. They ask you questions that they're not sure of. When those come out, you got to jump on them. You got to drive them. You got to own them because you're putting yourself out there. You're not waiting to be seen, but you're taking a chance. The other I'd say if it doesn't exist, create it. So when I first became a CTO, the role didn't exist. There wasn't even a rec out for it. I was just fortunate enough to be working in a team of large deals. And what you see across multiple deals is the consistencies and the inconsistencies required that the team has and what's required to win. And I went to the CEO of our company in North America, and I said, "Hey, you guys, I think we need a CTO for this market because no one really owns the tech stack from client to client to client, and no one really can tell the story from client to client where it resonates with the customer." And he said, "Hey, that sounds like a good idea. Let me do a little homework." And within 60 days, I had been given this role that really wasn't even a role. So I'd say if it doesn't exist, don't be scared to create it. And then the final thing I would say, if you put yourself out of work, you'll be the last person to be let go. So everything I do every day, I think about how do I optimize myself out of a job, right? What do I need to create? What do I need to uh, do? What do I need to add? What do I need to change that tomorrow they'll say, hey, we no longer need you. Because what I've learned, and I learned this at IBM, that if you continue to optimize yourself out of work, you're the last person to go, because they want to put you on the next one so you can optimize the next process out of work, right? So you're forever optimizing yourself out of position, but you're always around to do that.
That's a great point, especially now. We're living in this world where there's been a seismic amount of layoffs in technology from big, otherwise hyper successful companies. There are some folks who are probably thinking, maybe I need to um, slow walk this and protect myself, or this take a soft protectionist approach, which is very different than what you just suggested. For those folks who are thinking that maybe I should do less and so that they will need me more, what, what advice would you give them to help them make a mindset shift?
I would say that if you're thinking that way, others are thinking that way as well,
Hmm.
right? So you never want to be part of the pack. You want to get ahead of the pack. So if everyone's starting that chatter of, hey, they're laying off, I'm going to take it easy, I'm going to navigate low, I'm going to start looking. Well, the company's going to still be around if they leave, right? And they're still going to need leaders, and they're still going to need the people who said, you know, it looked like the sink was shipping, but the ship was sinking, but I brought my paddle, man, and I was able to keep us going. And that's the role you got to take, and that's what people see, right? I've learned a lot about people by the time we've spent together in the trenches, and those people I never forget, right? No matter where I've went, no matter what teams I've had to build, they're core people that I call and go, what are you doing? Are you looking for a new opportunity? Right? Because I know what they do.
Man, that is a classic gem for coffee, tech, and opportunity. What a way to manufacture your next opportunity by executing at a high level, building relationships with the people you're working with. So when someone else moves on, there may be an opportunity for you to move up. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So you've had, I'm going to pivot our conversation a bit, a very successful corporate life. Now you're a full time entrepreneur. Um, and startup founder. How did you get here?
So I think I was always an entrepreneur, right? I just focused more on things that I kind of knew growing up, right? So I focused on those types of opportunities. For example, like real estate investing and things of that nature, right? Because I saw that as an opportunity. But I also realized that I was an innovator and a entrepreneur, right? Being able to work on new opportunities inside the organization that gave me exposure, right? So when I was at ATOS, I was part of this group called the Scientific Community. I mean, these were the top 140 minds in a 130,000 person company, and focused on human and business challenges that were like 10 years out, and we were trying to figure out if we can close the gap in 4 years. And so when you start to work on those things and you start to get exposed, you're getting a chance to exercise some things inside of you that you really didn't know you had, right? And I think after a few different experiences, I realized that I only wanted to work on things that I was really passionate about, and money was not going to be my motivator. So, I always tell someone, if they say, hey, I got a great idea, I go, man, that's awesome. You're going to make a lot of money. If you need my help, feel free to reach out, but I'm not interested. And they go, why? It's because I'm not passionate about it. I wouldn't be thinking about it all night. I wouldn't wake up hoping I could get to it right away. So that's sort of where I am. And I knew that it was time to sort of go work on something that I had more of a ownership in.
So, a lot of people work for non-traditional technology companies. We classify them as old brick and mortar companies, but today every company is a technology company. And those brick and mortar companies, many of them are not able to move at the same pace as some of the cutting edge companies. They may not have the same technology, even though many of them over the last 5 years have gone through digital transformation. What advice would you give someone who's a leader today, maybe at the director level, and he or she is an innovator, a creator, problem solver, a pivot mover. Um, but the organization is running at a different pace. What advice would you give to them to continue to innovate in an environment where you're not going to be able to run 100 miles an hour when in fact the speed limit's about 35 or 40?
Well, I think that the perspective is key, right? Like big companies, a lot of times they never stop innovating. Innovation just slows down, and that's a good thing. If someone told me, "Hey, your new startup now is $1 billion company, and your main two products are dominating the industry," guess what? I'm not going to work on five new products. I'm going to keep making these two products the best. So I think understanding that big companies, once they find that piece that takes them to the pinnacle, they have to focus there and they have to build that capability. And they have to keep all the competitors off, right? And so that's a perspective. But in doing so, you still need people who are making those, who's innovating in the type of ways that the company can take advantage of, right? It's hard to move a big ship with a speedboat, right? It doesn't happen. In order to move a big ship, you need a tugboat. Tugboats move a lot smaller. I mean, a lot slower than a speedboat, but they still have that power to gently nudge those big ships into a new direction that they need to be. So definitely a different perspective on it. But yeah, big companies are not cannot be moved by speedboats. So if you're a speedboat, then you might as well look for the next startup.
It sounds like also what you're saying is you've got to both know yourself so that when you're choosing where you work, understanding what brand of boat and what mission that you want to be on, so that you can do the things that you were describing that you want to do at a pace that works for both you and the company.
Yeah, and I will say sometimes we should, when we're at a place, right? I always believe that we're where we need to be for exactly how long we need to be there if we see it. And I would say that the time that I spent at some of the companies, I always look back and ask myself on my way out, had I been there too long? Right.
Mhm.
But what I realized is all the opportunity that I had was because I was there that amount of time. Right. And so there's a delicate balance in sort of keeping that perspective of being there too long, being there long enough, and getting what you know you're going to need. Right. My last opportunity in corporate, I knew that eventually I was going to take the startup and focus full time, but the company had things that I needed to learn in order to run this type of startup. And so I knew that I needed to get there, needed to learn that. And that's what I focused on. So I think, just understanding where you are, understanding what you have to offer, and then really giving it what you have, and taking every moment in, because that next moment could be that next opportunity.
I love it. I love it. It reminds me of a quote from the movie Higher Learning, and the quote was pointed at Ice Cube's character, Mr. Winston. You're here to steal all the knowledge, and so great example of that. Not just going to work or to a job or a new opportunity to earn, but also going to learn. I want to pivot a little bit for I've got two more questions that I'm going to ask, and then I want to turn it over to our live stream audience because I'm confident that there are some people who want to ask you something that I haven't thought about. And our show isn't just about my agenda, it's really about the community's agenda. And we want to help people move forward and make progress in their professional careers, and accelerate the opportunities that they are able to take advantage of. So, one, I'm going to switch gears. We've talked about your corporate life. You have a company. I don't even want to announce the title of the company. I want you to say it. So, tell us about your company and what problems are you trying to solve?
Yeah, so the name of the company is Sonic Messenger, and we're really looking to democratize consumer measurement and engagement, right? And what we believe is that small companies, big companies alike, are looking to better understand their customer. They're looking to drive engagement through um, content that's being created. And so we've taken the idea of the digital pixel encapsulated it into an inaudible tone, and we can embed those inaudible tones into creative content that you see or hear. So, for example, you're watching your favorite show, and there's a wide shot, and boom, your phone gets an alert, and what's there is a snapshot of that entire scene, except everything in that scene is you can touch, click, learn more, you can buy it, but you never interrupt the programming. Or you're watching a TV commercial and the commercial comes on, and during that commercial, your mobile device automatically gets a coupon that you can redeem on your next visit to a store. So that's what we're doing with our technology. We're doing that across a TV, across radio, and out of home.
Wow. Man, very often I think when we have these gatherings or these shows or some other things in the marketplace where we bring on two black executives to have a conversation, it's almost exclusively a diversity discussion. But today is really a career and technology discussion, and the types of sophisticated technology that you're deploying to do the kinds of things that you do, that you're talking about. It sounds like something that we would be hearing about in the 22nd century that we haven't gotten to yet. Um, who do you think your customers are, and what do you think gets them most excited about what you're doing?
So we think that, or we have a variety of customers right now. We're focused on our broadcasters across radio and TV. I mean, you think about it, right? Radio has no way to visualize anything that they talk about on the radio. It's all just creatively through the message. So now they get a chance to visualize some of that content. Broadcast TV, I mean, more and more content is being created, more and more people are watching, whether it's broadcast TV, streaming TV, whatever it may be. And they're seeing things that they want to have and they want to learn more about, they want to engage more. And so we see that, like I say, broadcast TV and streaming platforms as another opportunity. But we also see the brands, right, eventually becoming some of our key customers. You think about some of the bigger brands who spend quite a few dollars a year advertising products, whether it be on TV, on radio, on billboards, things of that nature. But how do you measure it all, right? How do you drive a level of engagement similar to what you see on the mobile phone or the computer through digital ads? Well, in the traditional medium, that's been pretty tough, and so that's where we see us having the value. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our early customers and some of the companies that have seen the technology. I think where we are now and what we're working on with the particular company out of Africa is really building the workflow on how this fits into the business, right? Because I think that becomes the next question for most of them is, hey, I get what you're doing, but how do we make it fit? How do we make it fit into our operational model? How do we build a revenue model around it? Things like that. So that's what we're working on as we speak, so that we can bring that to those customers in the way that's we've already seen work in the market.
I love hearing your story about what your company's doing and how it weaves into your professional past. So we see a lot of entrepreneurs jumping out not many years after college. And shout out to Terrance and his HBCU. Which HBCU did you graduate from again, Terrance?
Tuskegee University, man.
I didn't want to leave that out. So for those folks who are Tuskegee alums, the exceptional talent that comes out of that place, Terrance absolutely exudes that and represents that. But I have kind of one and a half last questions. Roderick has a question. We're going to get to his question in just a second. And so for anyone else who has a question, please chat your question. We want to get that answered for you. And if you know anyone who you think missed out on hearing Terrance's conversation with Coffee Tech and Opportunity today, we will publish a live stream on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn for anyone to rewatch or share with their friends and professional network to take advantage of some of these gems. So my last question is, and I'm shifting gears a bit, and it's kind of encapsulates your whole story. And I think there are people who are budding entrepreneurs who are watching this. And I picked up this question from one of my favorite interviewers, and she's told the story about her being asked this question. Um, what would your world be like if you never had a bump in the road and every light was green and you were granted every opportunity that came your way?
Probably sweet, but seriously, I would say that I've probably learned more from the obstacles, missteps, naysayers, than I've ever learned from things going smoothly, right? And don't get me wrong, I like a well orchestrated plan, meeting the right level of preparation and execute it flawlessly. But that's just not where we learn. I used to always tell this story when I would go on a sales pitch. I had a team that used to do data center migrations, and the customers would ask, "Why should we choose you?" And I would tell them, "We're no smarter than you are. We've just failed every possible way that you could do this because we do it every day. So now we know how not to fail." And that's what you would learn if you had to do this yourself, is all the failure. You're buying that with us. And so I take any sort of bump in the road, any sort of misstep, miscue as an opportunity to learn and get better.
Wow, great answer, ladies and gentlemen. Terrance Bey. I want to go quickly because we've got a couple of questions in the queue. We're going to go first to Roderick, and then we're going to go to. Let me scroll down here a little bit. We're going to go to Alba. So Roderick's question, good question, and it sounded like, and his question came up as soon as you start describing the technology at Sonic Messenger. His question is Sonic Messenger open to investors?
So, Roderick, we will be. The something we've learned in this whole startup, and I tell you, it would have been great to have a startup 3 or 4 years out of college, but there's some real value in being 23 years in, and it is understanding what it takes to build a company that has value. So what we're doing in our efforts now is we're landing those initial customers, those use cases, so that when we take on the investors towards the end of the year, that there's real value there, right? We're not looking to take an idea and try to build it from scratch. We're not doing any of that. We're looking to truly go after customers with sort of what we've been able to prove. So be on the lookout later this year, maybe around late Q3, when we'll start executing on our fundraising. But right now, we want to make sure that when we bring that to the table, people are excited, not just about the technology, but the fact that customers are excited as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I want to go to Alba Rivas's question. Her question is, what is your advice to those getting into tech from a different industry? So career pivoters, which are, for those who don't know, is one of the fastest growing segments of the Black tech community. So people with um, great college education or advanced degrees, 5+ years of experience doing something that could be very meaningful from a soft skill perspective, or making a transition to technology. Her question is, so what's the first step?
Well, I think that you should really be able to take what you've done and figure out how it relates to what you want to get into. I think this is the perfect time for folks to move from different industries to technology. And I'll say this only one time because I don't like to talk about it a lot. Is I think that the only way that AI will deliver on the promises is for those folks who are industry experts in other areas partnering with technologists to really do it right. And so, if you're coming from medical, or you're coming from engineering discipline, or you're coming from teaching, I mean, they're creating tools and technology that are going to require that type of expertise. It's just really being able to put it together and make sure that it is explained properly across to this new space.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. There is a new question that has come up from Jasper. Jasper, we're going to put his question up really quick. Thank you for that answer. He says, I hope it isn't inappropriate to ask, but are you looking to build your sales team? If so, how can I hear what it is that you're looking for?
So, great question. We have started to think about sales, but not haven't started to build the sales team. A benefit again, another benefit of being in the industry over 20 years is I've reached out to some of my some folks that were sales leaders in corporate who are either retired or just looking for stuff to do, and they've been sort of helping me sort of understand and navigate what that means. I think for us, the moment that we wrap up these next few use cases, we'll have the collateral, we'll have the direction, we'll have the messaging where we can really start to focus on building out that go to market team.
Awesome, awesome. That actually goes back to your previous answer to another question about how relationships, people that you've worked with in the past, filter into your future, and you're cumulatively as a leader on an ongoing basis building a team for who knows what's next. Um, I- I'm going to close this out here. We went over. Terrance, thank you so much for being so graceful with our time. But before we close, uh, your closing thoughts, anything else you're working on, anything you want to share before you close?
I mean, just for this community, man, I would actually say to don't think about this as a sprint. You know, think about this as a marathon and build your endurance. I think whether you're moving into the tech field from somewhere else or you've been in the field 10 plus years and you're looking to navigate, really think about this as a marathon and find those things that you need to build up because you never know when someone's going to ask that question and you're the only one in the room with the answer, and that's a gift and a curse, right? The gift is you'll be slid into the position to perform. The curse is it'll be for probably a high level executive who's going to push everything down to you to perform. So but yeah, I'd say this is definitely something that is really about building up your endurance, finding those opportunities that give you what you need in order to succeed. And then my final thought would be, Will, around the idea you and I talked about a little bit of remote work. I know
Mm-hmm.
that that's been a touchy subject for a lot of people, but some of the best people that I have carried along with me from role to role and given the biggest opportunity is because I was able to work with them hand in hand in the office, on customer site, after work. And there was a level of trust and rapport that was built that I would just go to bat for them. And so while we've all got comfortable working from home, you're going to build that real trust when you're able to work with people more than you're working at home.
Man, thanks for circling back on that. Terrance and I were chatting about that before we went live today. There are so many companies who are grappling with this. What will hybrid work from home, back to the office look like? And a lot, and I talked to a lot of CIOs and CTOs, are for coming back to the office. And there is a resistance movement on the other side for tech employees. But it's good to hear another executive talk about why it's important and how it might be a critical piece for career development. We have one last question, Terrance. It came in a little late, but I would, if you have the time, I'd love to you to answer that, and then we'll close it out after this one. Um, uh, Moeed Muhammad is asking, how did you adapt from working in a big structured company like Google, and then being transitioned to a startup environment, fewer people, very often fewer resources, and not having that team around you all the time?
Man, that great question, right? Because that has been the struggle The idea of, I mean, you think about something as simple as product development. At a big company, you put the budget together, you got a number, you send it in, you get money for it. And as an entrepreneur, you got to be really, really tight on figuring out how you do more with less. But I think that um, when I went to Google, I knew that I was going to eventually step out on my own. So some of those ideas of what it means to be a smaller company, what it means to be entrepreneurial, what it means to leverage the network that you've built over the years. I mean, heck, I could tell you, I've got tons of free advice from lots of people that I've worked with over the years that has been very helpful to me in this startup. A lot of introductions to people that has been helpful as well. So I think that the biggest adaptation is, hey, you don't have the same budget, but I think the value is the network. I've been able to leverage the network to really help me navigate some of the things that we needed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Also, hey, Moyd, how's it going? I know Moyd too, so
Good deal. Good deal. So yet again, even this question, its answer and answers to other questions today, and thank you, Moet, for the question, is centered around the importance of network and relationships that are built and developed over an extended career, everything from mentors to team members to future employees. And so, if you're watching this, listening to this, or replaying this, and you don't know Terrance Bey, you should start building your relationship with him now. I imagine that there are a lot of people coming this way, and it's a very busy time for him. But it's a good time to start, and leading with your capacity to help him solve problems or accelerate his outcomes is a great way to go. Or, which something that everyone has the power to do, making an introduction for Terrance to help him advance the great technology they're building and the problems that he and his company are going to be able to solve. We're now, ladies and gentlemen, at the point in the show where we must say goodbye. And as we close out going into the holiday weekend, we wish that everyone will be safe. As a veteran-owned company, it's Memorial Day weekend. This is a special time for those of us at Black Tech Jobs and our subsidiary Black Tech Execs. We're committed to the mid-career and senior level Black Tech professionals, and our commitment will not end. We do this for the community. Thank you so much, Terrance Bey. We could not have done this without you and gracing us with your time. And to our guests, we bid you goodbye and have a great one.
thank you. Have a good day.